Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers, and it's time for Comics Revisited. Today we're revisiting Warren Ellis's Stormwatch. That's right everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers and Comics Revisited. Today we're revisiting Warren Ellis's Stormwatch. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is...
Jelani
Bullard, and I'm very, very happy to have Jelani here for his very first Comics Revisited. And today we're going to be talking about Warren Ellis's Stormwatch because Jelani and I are both huge Warren Ellis fans. We were reading this stuff back in the day, and what you may know Stormwatch from is this is the precursor to The Authority. The Authority is a much more polished book, a much more 100% Ellis book, and definitely a more popular book, right? But Stormwatch is where all that groundwork was laid. Warren Ellis was still kind of getting into his comic career. I mean, Transmet had come out. Things were moving, right? Things were moving for him. A fantastic work. Me and Jelani are going to go through a whole bunch of Warren Ellis works here on Comics Revisited. So you got to start with Stormwatch. What about Ellis do you like so much?
Ellis is grim and gritty and real. He is the one of the realest writers that I've ever experienced to begin with. Authority was a big thing that got me into Warren Ellis to begin with. And in order to understand that story, you really have to go into Stormwatch.
Yes.
And actually delve into it. But the way he writes, the way he tells a tale is amazing. He unfolds layers upon layers of things. Now with Stormwatch, I mean, it's not the greatest book because they're not really his characters that he's fleshing out. But at the same time, what he gives those characters and the characters he creates, he gives them a layer that you really can understand. You can relate to these characters. You realize that it's kind of a deconstruction of superheroes. Yeah, kind of like Watchmen in the same kind of. I guess the same.
Yeah,
genre.
A tiny little bit of it.
Just a little bit, but it's a deconstruction. But it's still a superhero feeling that he gives to his books.
Yeah,
with a kind of a futuristic overtone as well.
He's very forward-thinking about futurism and what's coming up. These books were originally available in these nifty little trade paperback versions that did not come out in order when they first were released, and it was very infuriating to go back and try to read Stormwatch stuff after reading while the Authority was going on. These books are the original ones. Then they got this new collection that they did, a book 1 and a book 2. It's all there, except for it does not have the Aliens Wildcats crossover, which is really, really important to the ending of Stormwatch, and we'll get to that. Basically, Stormwatch is a part of the Wildstorm Universe. Warren Ellis, of course, is doing the Wildstorm right now, where he's reinventing a more grounded take on this whole universe. So this was the superhero universe created by Jim Lee, and Stormwatch went for a minute. It didn't really sell. It didn't have that level of success that Wildcats had, or anything like that. But they just decided they were going to keep publishing it no matter what. So they brought in Warren Ellis, and they were kind of like, you can do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so first thing, he takes this really overly gorged team of Stormwatch, and he just gets rid of a whole bunch of them. They get fired, they get canned, people get shifted, and he makes killed. And he makes a very streamlined Stormwatch that's very easy to follow. And even though there's 36 issues that came before Warren Ellis, you don't need to read those to really understand this. So Warren Ellis came in to do this book in 1996 through 1998. He started with Volume 1, number 37. That went to the Volume 1 conclusion in issue number 50. They relaunched it, and it went for 11 issues, and it ended kind of abruptly, but it was all set up for the Authority. So that's what we're getting into. The artwork is mostly done in this book. There's a lot of different artists, but it's mostly done by Tom Rainey, Oscar Jimenez, and Brian Hitch. This is where I was really, after Authority, Authority and this is where I really started getting into Brian Hitch. And I think that when you read these books, and I do love these books, and we recommend them. That's why we're talking about them. But I think that when you get to the later half of Authority, where Brian Hitch comes in, or the later half of Stormwatch, when Brian Hitch comes in, it starts feeling it starts clicking better. The ideas are there. New characters are introduced like Midnighter and Apollo. Fantastic things like that, right? So what do you think about the artwork? In particular, Rainey, Jimenez, and Hitch. And of course you got other people. Chris Sprouse, Michael Ryan threw in some work here and there. Very 90s. Stormwatch was a very, very 90s wild, extreme image type thing by Jim Lee. And Warren Ellis really based it in a sci-fi reality that made a lot of sense. What do you think about the artwork?
The artwork is hit and miss for me. Tom Brady is okay. I like what he does because he has a feel like kind of like Jim Lee's art.
Yeah.
It's the same style that you wanna see in that 90s art. It's okay. Oscar Jimenez has it's a good transition. Like you can tell the difference as it goes through. I do like Tom Rainey, but Brian Hitch is the man. When you see him on, when you can tell, like there's like an issue in between one of the main issues that Oscar Jimenez is drawing that you can tell that Brian Hitch is taking over these pages.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant. Like it's like his art matches Warren Ellis's words.
Yes,
like and you follow it very well, and it oh god, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So beautiful. It's real world. It looks like a real world, but if superheroes were drawn in it, kind of like not Alex Ross in a way.
It's still very stylized and superhero-y, but you would see seams on the costumes.
Yeah,
you would see little things like that, like straps that made sense. And one of the good things that Tom Rainey does when he comes into the book is that per Warren Ellis's direction, they strip down a lot of that extremeness from like the Jim Lee stuff, all this big crazy splash and the crazy costumes and the unrealistic bodies and things like that. They really tone that down. Warren Ellis doesn't really like superheroes,
not at all.
But he works so well with them at times when it's the right one, and when he's able to do what he wants, it's pretty fun. But so the art is solid, especially when you hit to the Brian Hitch. It's not going to be as clean as the Brian Hitch that we're used to today in Hawkman or even back in the Ultimates and Authority day, but it's really cool, really refreshing and fun. Some great characters. So first of all, Warren Ellis came and got rid of a whole bunch of characters. Some people got fired, some people got relocated, some people just got written out, and it doesn't even matter. I don't even know who some of those people were.
They start the entire Stormwatch episode with a funeral.
Yeah,
that one of them gets murdered.
Yeah, there was was that the Eye of the Storm? There was some kind of event that happened.
Yeah, it just happened, and one of their major characters
I think
died.
In the first 36 issues of Stormwatch, it gets caught up into like 6 or 8 events. Probably they really overdid it back then.
Wow, they were doing too much.
Yeah, we complain about it nowadays.
Yeah, we didn't read it for that.
I didn't read Stormwatch at first. I read Wildcats though.
Yeah, we were Wildcats because it's Jim Lee.
So Warren Ellis keeps some characters, and he so Battalion, who was the field leader, is now like the trainer. But he's setting up something to come because he eventually becomes the Weatherman. The Weatherman, of course, is the leader of Stormwatch operations. They're up in a satellite Skywatch. They're basically this UN-sanctioned superhero team.
Yep.
And Warren Ellis just strips them down and makes it a lot more sense.
Instead of like 32 people all running together,
there's Stormwatch Prime.
Yeah.
Which we're going to have Fuji, we got Winter, and we've got Hellstrike. And then Stormwatch Red, which is Fahrenheit, and Flint, and Rose Tattoo. And then Stormwatch Black, which is the most exciting one because that's where the seeds to the Authority are first planted. That's Jenny Sparks. That's Jack Hawksmoor, 2 of my absolute favorite comic book characters created in the 90s. Absolutely adore those characters. And he also takes Swift, who was a more recently introduced member of Stormwatch, and completely kind of reimagines her and remakes her, and she has this secondary mutation or something like that.
Right.
Really fun. So there's this big cosmic event too, the Comet event or whatever.
Yeah, the Comet event gives everyone their superpowers, pretty much. And they're latent, other than in the Stormwatch universe, there are 3 types of people that get powers, that have powers. And one of them they're born in, or they have the Comet event that comes in,
or they're like an alien hybrid,
or they're an alien hybrid. And so in this world, most of the people that are on Stormwatch are activated humans that were affected by the comet. Everything that happened in the comet world activates their powers. Like, for example, Fuji, which is this gigantic robot. Well, he's a gaseous form that's trapped in this robot suit.
It's really cool.
And he's really awesome. And he's just a very... his power is, I guess... I don't know, just super strength.
Yeah, you got something like that.
Something sentient. It doesn't matter. But Hellstrike is also kind of a gaseous computer.
He's in this like human-shaped plastic thing or something.
Fahrenheit is in control of fire.
And Warren Ellis
just details these characters.
And he takes the idea of their powers and he makes it make a little bit of real-world scientific sense, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just some really fun stuff with that. Who are some of your favorite characters from this whole thing? First of all, I really... obviously, we love Stormwatch Black. But I really think that Battalion and Synergy became so much more interesting. And it seems like at first that they're just relegating Battalion to this like side job of like, you're going to be the trainer now. He's not, and he's like used to being the field leader. And Synergy, who they have a relationship together, she's used to being, she was the weatherman at one point. And now she's just going out trying, activating superpowers for people. And then there's this...
And she's like the only person that can do it. But then there's a one-shot story. There's another person that's out there.
She wants a part of the Highs group, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So really cool villains and things like that, too. But I really like the work that's done with Jackson King Battalion by Warren Ellis. And then, of course, I think Winter's pretty decent. A lot of them, though, are just kind of caricatures.
They're just there.
They're just there. It's kind of meaningless. And so when they ultimately, spoilers, all get got at the end, it's not really that big of a deal. But it is very shocking nonetheless. But we love Stormwatch Black. Tell me why you love Hawksmoor, Swift, and Jenny Sparks so much.
They don't give a crap. Stormwatch Black is the Black Ops team that Henry Bendix, the Weatherman, created. They're a known entity, but they work outside of Stormwatch. Stormwatch is normally this UN-based team, and when they go out into the public, they only show Stormwatch Prime and Stormwatch Red for certain issues.
The Wetworks,
but it's the Wetworks, but
the X-Force.
Yeah, they're awesome. But they get stuck in there, and they do the team's jobs without really being sanctioned by Stormwatch. Jack Hawksmoor travels within cities.
Yes.
So he's his entire life from like 5 to like 16, he's been abducted by aliens, and they just take body parts off of him and add new things.
They design him to live perfectly in a city. He like feeds off pollution. He can climb up walls.
He's amazing.
He's got them cool treads on his feet. He can like reappear in a city. He can go to sleep in one city, and they grow a pod in another city, and he pops. It's just fantastic stuff. I love Hawksmoor.
Man, he's Hawksmoor.
And no superhero suit.
None. Things. He's wearing a suit. He's just wearing a suit.
Swift's got wings and talons and things like that, and she gets really cool.
And Jenny Sparks, who is my favorite Warren Ellis character, it might even be my favorite character of all time. She is the spirit of the 20th century. Her power is basically she's lived for almost 96 years.
Yeah,
pretty much in this book. She controls electricity. She has the power to move into any electrical current.
And it makes sense, being the spirit of the 20th century, she is electricity.
Yeah, and she's awesome. She's constantly chain smoking. I think she's the most Warren Ellis character.
Yes, and there's always one of them.
Yeah, there's always one person that's Warren Ellis.
They wear a white suit. Yeah, they smoke a lot.
Pretty much.
They're very cynical.
Yeah, they hate everything.
And they're always right.
Always right, no matter what. And it sets up this team so well. When I started to read Authority and really wanted to know the background of these characters, I had to go back to Stormwatch.
Yeah.
So you have to read Stormwatch. It's kind of a must read for the basis and the foundations of what the Authority turns out to be. And with these 3 characters, along with Apollo Midnight Miter later,
yes,
they become what is gorgeous. But then there's like stories, the Warren Ellis story with the with the first Authority, I'm gonna call them.
Yeah, because there's the original, not the original Doctor, but the Doctor before the Doctor we get in Authority. There's the original engineer.
The original engineer.
Yeah.
We get the High, Smoke, the Blind.
Yeah.
All of these characters want to change and make a better world. And it's just this great storyline where these heroes just decide all of a sudden, in the Blind, they just want to change the world, and they're going to stop government. They're going to make things accessible to everyone and make everyone basically, a beautiful world. Just a perfect, finer world.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. And Henry Bendix, the Weatherman, does not want this.
Yes.
At all.
And the only reason why he doesn't want it, and Henry Bendix is the Weatherman, and Warren Ellis straight up starts off his run by slowly showing us Bendix's
that's what Stormwatch is
power.
About.
So he's the man on high who's making all these shots. He's only allowed to deploy Stormwatch when the UN wants him to, but then that's one of the reasons why he has a Stormwatch Black.
Yep.
Right? And he's also had this other shady team, and that's where we get Midnighter and the Apollo.
Right.
The Apollo.
The Apollo.
The Apollo. Midnighter at the Apollo. But that's where we get those. That's basically a Justice League Avatar team.
Right.
They're basically
that's exactly
analogs for that. Really fun stuff, and Bendix is just eventually gets so corrupted by his power. And he is also trying to make a better world no matter what the cost.
Right.
Which is eventually what Jenny does. And Jenny winds up becoming this opposing figure to Bendix, but she winds up, they have the same goal. They even have the same means. And the High's team's kind of like that. But the reason why Henry was not cool with the High and his plan, and he even says it in the book, because it's not me.
It's not him doing it.
I'll be damned if somebody does it before I do.
That's right.
What do you think about the Fall of Bendix Man? I think he's one of the, aside from like Jenny, I think he's such a compelling character in this book.
He's the best villain that you never saw coming. Well, you kind of see it coming. But over time, Weatherman realizes that he has so much power. He has so much. Like, the UN decides to, every time that he wants to, or they need help, they call a code perfect. Code perfect is basically the code to drop Stormwatch into whatever situation needs to happen.
And it's a very international team, being a UN-sanctioned team. So you got Fuji's Japanese.
Right. Fahrenheit's American.
Hellstrike is Irish. Winter is
Russian.
Russian, yeah.
Yeah, Winter's Russian.
Of course.
But yeah, it's...
Jenny's British.
Obviously. Right. But you get an international team and it's a mix. But he has so much power because it's the world that's giving it to him. So he slowly starts to arrest people and cryo-freeze them on Skywatch and without trial. He gets, he does very dark things. And he thinks it's because of the justice at all costs.
Yeah.
And he thinks that he can make his own world this way. And over time, I think it's started to warp him.
Yeah.
And make him just realize it. So when this authority comes, which is one of the best stories in Stormwatch, he immediately wants them killed. He wants them dead. So he sends Stormwatch Prime and Stormwatch Red out to murder these people that want to basically pacify the world.
And he's also keeping it away from Jenny, because Jenny has like a relationship and connection with the High. And he's trying, and that really starts setting, and she even says when Bendix first finds her, she's like, I'll kill you if you cross me. And I feel one thing is because of the rush to end this and get into the authority and just the fallout from the Aliens crossover, we'll talk about that in just a minute. I feel like we didn't quite get that big final oomph moment between Jenny. And she just shows up and he's in the hospital bed at the end, and like it just kind of. But maybe that's also a point though. Warren Ellis is accused of being anticlimactic at times, and I think he kind of does it as a point, kind of like the Coen brothers do with their movies, to be like, that's the end in the story.
Sorry,
and keep going. But the ending basically, so DC and Wildstorm asks Warren Ellis to do a Wildcats Aliens crossover, and he says that's a terrible idea. And they go, but you can kill whoever you want. So he's like, well, okay. So the last 2 issues of Stormwatch, the one, they see this asteroid coming. They don't know what's going on. They go to try to stop it, and the book ends, right? And then the Wildcats Aliens crossover happens, and it's not in the new trade paperbacks. This does not include the Wildcats Aliens crossover, but if you go find the Aliens Wildcats crossover, it fits right in between issues 10 and 11. So then issue 11, the Wildcats Aliens crossover is just the Wildcats show up, and half of the Stormwatch characters that were not created by Warren Ellis are dead. Fuji, Hellstrike, they're dead.
All off camera.
Fahrenheit, they're dead. They get killed off panel.
Yep, dead.
Stormwatch Black isn't there on the space station, so they survive. And it leads into the end of the book is her opening the door, because another concept introduced in here, because Warren Ellis likes to do very sciencey things, is the bleed. the space between the universes. Mm-hmm. And there's a multiverse, parallel worlds, and Ginny's had experience with that, and so she knows what's coming, and it sets up all the stuff that happens in Authority, and it's beautiful. But Jackson survives, Synergy survives, and Flint survives. You even see them in Authority, and in that book, The Monarchy, they did, which was not very good. What do you think about the Aliens ending, man? It's quite wild, wasn't it?
The Aliens ending is insane. It is the best story, of course, because he just slaughters characters that I wasn't attached to, but at the same time, he's killing things with aliens, and it's a space adventure.
And it's done very well. Chris Sprouse did the artwork.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And like you get the feeling that Stormwatch wouldn't have been prepared for this anyway.
No.
So they were not ready for this.
And it adds such a burden to Jackson, because Jackson at this point is the weatherman. And I loved his duration as the weatherman. I loved him because he was starting to understand what Henry had to deal with.
Exactly.
The decisions you have to make, and how that has a warping factor on your mind. When they say absolute power corrupts, absolutely, they ain't kidding, and there's a reason for that, man.
And he goes and he has to make his decisions for people to live and die. Mm-hmm. And especially with Apollo Midnighter, going back to that story, which is my second favorite story.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, because Apollo and Midnighter, they're basically Superman and Batman, but they were genetically engineered screwed over by Henry Bendix multiple times. And they're also lovers. And it's just such a great dynamic between the two.
And
what fantastic characters.
It's subtle.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get all the way... Like Mark Miller's run, I think he was a little too on the nose with it sometimes. Yeah. And I love the way Warren Ellis handles their sexuality, because it's known, it's obvious, but it's not...
It's not like in your face.
Yeah.
And it
not
works
that it's
out.
Not in your face,
but,
it's not...
It's a regular love.
Yeah.
It's love.
It's treated very much just like anything else.
Yeah. And Warren Ellis had a way with Apollo Midnighter to the point where that story, I love that story. How they're basically an amalgam of the Justice League. So they have other characters that are like, they have a Black Canary ripoff, they have a Martian Manhunter, and a Green Lantern ripoff, but they're all together and they're sent to this engine that's deciding to create like soldiers to protect it. And it's one of the many things that Bendix was trying to stop or was a part of. I'm not sure what that was. But he sends this team in and they all get killed except for Apollo Midnighter. And they were sent to get this war engine moved. And they couldn't go back to the transfer bay where they were supposed to teleport back to without this certain engine. And so Apollo Midnighter was stuck. So they escaped on their own, and they lived on the land for like 5 years. So no one knew where they were. No one knew who they were. They are, because they erased their identities when they took this mission. And it was just one of those horrible things that happens to a team under Henry Bendix. So for them to come back into the fold of Stormwatch, and Jackson King's like, and everybody's like, well, we're trusting them to do certain things, like the story itself goes into what happens with the original Authority, where they make a garden. It's a garden of technology. You can build anything out of it.
Yeah, they use nanotechnology.
Nanotechnology to grow
when
everything.
When that team comes in, they try to make the world better. Bendix stops it.
Exactly.
And then but
it's still there. Yeah, it's still there. So there's a forest where American soldiers are pretty much harvesting all of the technology for themselves.
Yeah.
And Warren Ellis is very anti-American, or very anti-government, I should say.
Well, that leads me right into what we're about to get into next.
So it's very good.
Some of the themes
it's crazy.
that Warren Ellis has that are very prevalent in a lot of his work, especially in Stormwatch, is a distrust of authority and government, whether it be the United Nations or especially the United States government. He paints a picture of some shady government dealings going on, and like really, I mean, obviously in Stormwatch. He's big into futurism. Warren Ellis just loves thinking about what's the next big thing, what's the next breakthrough in technology. So you get a lot of references to things like that about free energy, 0-point energy, the bleed and parallel universes, nanotechnology, things like that, and ties it in a little bit at times with ancient folklore and shamanic type elements, and that's why you have the engineer and the doctor together, and it makes so much sense and it works so much. And the other thing, and this is in almost every single Warren Ellis book, is an innate sense for justice.
Yep.
Justice no matter what the cost. All these different forces throughout Stormwatch, Jelani. Ginny and Stormwatch Black, the precursor to the Authority. Henry Bendix. Jackson King, the Weathermen. And their two different times at being the Weatherman. The United States government. The United Nations Security Council. All these the High and the original Authority. All these characters are all trying to bring justice no matter what the cost. And they're all combating and fighting each other. And Warren Ellis has always said that Stormwatch and the Authority, they're the villains. They just happen to be going up against people that may be even worse than they are.
Them.
But they cause mass destruction. That's all evident here. It's a great build-up to the Authority, and it's fantastic. Wrapping up here, Jelani, what are your observations on some of those themes that Warren Ellis explored?
I mean, it's all once again, very dark. I don't see. I see the justice whatever the cost. That is
because Ginny's got that. Bendix even has that.
It's a power that you get when you know that you are right, and it's the worst. I mean, it's the worst way to be when you're trying to force your ideologies on other people.
And the difference is being that they are not
they
trying.
Have two different ways.
Ginny and Bendix and the rest, they're done trying to convince people to act right. They're going to make them act right. If you don't act right, and that's what gets built up, and it even gets explored further in the Authority. What do you think about the sci-fi futurism aspect of it? I love the cutting edge technology.
I love their
ideas.
technology, but it was like that in the beginning of Stormwatch too. They had the battalion had that futuristic suit.
Yeah, but Warren Ellis really grounds it and explains it.
That's where I'm getting to. Yeah, I like how the Weatherman's new headset that Jackson King uses is organic. Like it grows on him, like his fetish and all that different technology grows onto this body, and it is amazing. I don't understand why that wasn't done sooner. It just looks cooler. Everything looks very futuristic in a modern time. Yeah. So, I don't know. It looks great.
Absolutely. So that's what we thought about Stormwatch. Overall, I recommend it. I love it, especially if you love the Authority or even just want to read the Authority. I recommend you should read Stormwatch first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Next week or next time here on Comics Revisited, please do join me and Jelani again, where we'll be talking about, appropriately enough, Kingdom Come, which is kind of like a nice response to books like Stormwatch and the Authority, right? We will be talking about the Authority coming up this year in Comics Revisited Season 2, so stay tuned for that one as well. Very excited, but join us next time for Kingdom Come. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is
Jelani Bullard.
And let us know what you think of Stormwatch in the comments down below, and please be sure to join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and a whole lot more. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Umbrellas.